For the longest time, I saw Berserk being talked about and being at the top of so many lists as the most goated manga ever. But for some reason, I just couldn't bring myself to read it. Sometimes I felt it was too dark, sometimes I felt it was a bit too overwhelming, and to top it all off, it's still incomplete. But one day, being bored and procrastinating as I usually do, I thought, hey, let's give Berserk a shot. From that point onwards, I was on an inspiring journey of self-discovery, resilience, struggle, and overcoming the odds set against you. Steeped in complex moral philosophy and a way of life is the story of Guts, a hero akin to Sisyphus, who pushes a boulder up a hill only to have it come back down every single time, crushing all his efforts and expectations. The only difference being that when the boulder comes down on Guts, it not only destroys his efforts, it destroys everything that surrounds him and crushes them like ants. Berserk has been a discovery that has inspired me and motivated me like nothing else has ever done. It isn't just the phenomenal story that is so alluring, so I'll start by breaking down the art. Every single stroke, every single panel, and every single page conveys the artistic expertise of Kentaro Miura. This contributes to the sheer detail that was added in every frame of this masterpiece. Miura left no stone unturned in crafting an experience that exudes brilliance in every single aspect. From the character and world design to the fight scenes and all the way to the dialogue, Berserk is beautifully captured in the monochrome pages of an artist at the height of their powers. There were so many times where I just stopped on a single page, gazing into the design and art until every little detail was etched into my mind. From fiendish hellscapes to serene landscapes, the artwork is absolutely jaw-dropping. That's why, when I found out it was also displayed in museums and art exhibitions, it was less of a surprise and more of a fulfilled expectation. Berserk brings a tragic, dark, and twisted fantasy to life like no other form of expression that I have ever experienced. Keep in mind that the manga has been around since the 90s, and yet it only has like 300-ish chapters. Compare this with popular shonen manga that have beyond 1,000 chapters in the same time. Miura is not only a fantastic storyteller, he is an artist of the absolutely highest caliber. Period. So the story is a dark, bloody, and tragic epic. Similar to reading a good book or watching a great movie, a new perspective is added to the way you think about things and how you see the world. It uplifts the mentality of an individual with an original and unique idea. I remember I once read that the greatest writers are able to paint with words. That's exactly what Miura does, but he's able to go beyond that because his illustrations magnify and emphasize everything he's conveying, so it becomes so much more easier to absorb. While the first arc is rather gory and makes it seem like Guts is a rage-filled monster with insane bloodlust, the arc generally devotes itself to forming an understanding of the world around Guts. It's only from the second arc onwards that the characters start to get more developed, and it contextualizes the moving parts in the story. And finally, we begin to recognize that this is a journey of struggle and tragedy of immense proportions. Generally, the second arc tones down the gore compared to the first, and it starts to feel more like a classic shonen. But there's a lot happening beneath the surface, and you start to wonder. The last arc was so gory. What is happening? Why is there such a tonal shift? As you read on, the pieces of the puzzle start to come together and manifest the philosophy of nihilism, existentialism, and absurdism in the story. In a world without meaning, Guts must struggle to create a meaning that he believes in, while consistently being crushed under the weight of all the meaninglessness, bringing forth the idea that suffering against the setbacks is what affirms life. There are moments that directly quote Nietzsche. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. For if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. The story not only utilizes the philosophical tenets of Nietzsche, but it goes beyond, with stuff like the master-slave morality, will to power, amor fati, and alludes to philosophers like Descartes, Jung, Plato, Hegel, and so many more. Rest assured that this dark fantasy story is an absolutely wild ride. Let's talk about the world and art now. So like I said before, it's a monochrome world which is as real as it gets. From what I understand, there are 4 distinct worlds Berserk operates in. The first being the present reality that we see, which is a dark fantasy version of a medieval empire. The second is the past, which contextualizes the present, which largely resembles a medieval empire, with the dark fantasy elements generally being absent. This is the Golden Age art. The third world is a hellscape of demons, depravity, and degeneracy, which holds no resemblance with anything real, but it is akin to a nightmarish world that can only be conjured through imagination, and through Kentaro Miura's imagination. The fourth world isn't very explicitly shown, but it is often alluded to, which is a world of magic that seems to be plucked out of a fairy tale. Each of these holds weight in the story and shapes our understanding of why a specific thing happens in that specific way. Miura does not waste a single stroke or word on anything unnecessary. Everything feels relevant and expands our horizon as to what is being shown and told, and truly displays the brilliance of Kentaro Miura's art. The very first character you will meet in Berserk is Guts, with a dark past and a score to settle with his demonic enemies. Starting off rather one-dimensional, he ends up as one of the most believable and human characters I have ever witnessed. As the story unwinds, you follow Guts through his past, allowing you to experience his personality change during his constant battle against fate. You follow Guts through waves of despair and hardships, offset only by the flickering fires of friendship and trust. From the supporting characters to the protagonists and antagonists, they're all draped in so many layers of depth that make their characters both solid pillars and interesting ingredients within the plot as a whole. They all have their own emotions, personalities, and ambitions. The cast show as actual players in Berserk's grand game, and not just as passive plot devices. There are heroes you root for and empathize with, villains you can't help but admire for their ruthlessness and charisma, and the artwork is just generally dark, brooding, and gruesome, and it complements the story so well. It hooks you from the first chapter and sets the stage for the most intriguing revenge-themed manga on the market. Its success is testament to its quality. My only complaint is the excruciating waits between chapters. Also, I must throw in a cautionary note. This manga is definitely not for the faint-hearted. There is a considerable amount of nudity, gore, and violence, but if you can get past this hurdle, this manga will change you forever.